Welcome back to Her Perspective. Interest in sexual activity typically increases when an individual reaches puberty. Some researchers assume that sexual behavior is determined by genetics, while others assert that it is molded by the environment.
This is called the nurture versus nature debate, in which one can define nature as those behavioral traits that are due to innate characteristics such as instinct and drives. The concept of nurture can be defined as the environmental factors or external stimuli that influence behavior, emotions, and thinking. Biological, physical differences include the human sexual response cycle among men and women.
Now, joining us to discuss the issue of sexuality are Sandra Knight, counseling psychologist from the Counseling Center at the Northern Caribbean University, and Denisha Blake, sales and marketing coordinator here at NCU Media Group.
Thank you for joining us, ladies.
You're quite welcome.
And to get the program going, I'm just going to ask you, tell us a little about yourself, starting with you, Sandra.
I'm Sandra Knight, happily married for 28 years.
Praise the Lord.
I would describe myself as somebody who didn't get it right the first time, but because of the skills of my 28-year-old teacher,
Okay.
I think I'm there.
Okay. Denisha?
I have two adult children.
Yes. Okay, Denisha?
Okay, I'm Denisha Blake, as you said before, sales and advertising coordinator at NCU Media Group, mother of 2 children, 7 and 9, and single.
Okay, then. Now, ladies, we're here looking at sexuality, a topic when some people hear it, all sorts of things stand up and their attention gets going. But when we think of sexuality, and I'm going to start with Sandra, what comes to mind when you think of a woman and her sexuality?
Sexuality is not just about the sexual organs. For me, as a woman, sexuality has to do with being a woman.
Okay.
How I take care of my body, especially those areas that are involved in this whole matter of sexuality. But it's not just about the organs. It's just me being a woman and it's comfortable being a woman and that sort of thing.
Denisha?
I quite agree with Sandra in terms of my sexuality, defining who I am, the choices that I make, how I carry myself, the thoughts I have of myself. Those are the things that make up my sexuality.
Okay, wonderful. And so you are looking at, you are representing this afternoon the woman, the married woman, and her sexuality, and I'm asking you to represent the single woman.
Yeah, she's
and her.
on my side.
And I'm looking to Adis within the Christian context.
Yes.
Yes, because that is very important for us, although we represent other women who are not of our faith. So here we go now. Should a Christian, because there are some people who believe that when it comes on to sex, Christians must not even think about it, talk about it.
Taboo,
it's taboo, something is wrong, you're ungodly. Is that true?
Unholy.
No, because one of the main purpose of sex is to glorify God.
Yes.
Another purpose is for procreation. The Lord wants us as Christians to be happy. But he wants us to do it in a context that is Christ-like. So I firmly believe that Christians within the context of marriage should engage in sexual activities.
Hold on, but you have gone back to sex in terms of intimacy. Yeah. Is it okay for Christian married women to enjoy sex?
Of course.
It's not ungodly?
The Lord made us that way with all of those urges and everything else, the organs, the urges, the feelings, everything. He made us that way. And when we do that, especially when we engage in the act of sexual intercourse, we are helping the Lord to populate. Yes. He said, he gave us the command to go out there and to multiply and replenish the earth. How are we going to do that?
Okay, stick a pin. So every time I engage in sex, it should be to procreate?
No, that's just one purpose.
Okay, so we can enjoy it outside of that?
Outside of that. If you have that in the back of your mind that there are other purposes for sex, then you would always want to engage in sex. Who wants to have 50 children. And sometimes in a lifetime, you know how many times would have been engaged in sexual activities as married people.
Okay.
So it's really, yes, for procreation, for physical gratification, for comfort, for expression of love. Right.
Beautiful.
We're looking at it from a single person's perspective, right?
Yes.
And many questions, Lorraine, that might be asked by our young people is how do we deal with these sexual urges? I mean, they've not gotten to the point of marriage yet, but they're feeling all these changes happening in their bodies. They're excited by what they're seeing on TV, coming across on the internet. How is it that it is handled out of the context of marriage?
You see, the Lord gave us these urges. Therefore, He has the answer on how to control. Exercise. And one person would say drink a lot of water. But if you are engaged in meaningful activities, that will help as well. Yes, it's hard. It's hard for a single person to really avoid the thought of sex. It's everywhere.
Yeah.
It's you
We're
turn on your
bombarded.
television, it's there. It's on the internet. This is the 21st century. It's everywhere. But then self-control. Just commit your urges like you would do for anything else, an addiction, to God, and He will help you.
So you're saying our urges are like just a normal hunger pain, if you will, hunger pain, or you're thirsty, you think of drinking some water.
Just that those ought to be satisfied.
Yeah,
Right,
that's
right,
And can be satisfied without any ramifications.
Yes.
Right, but I'm saying in the same way in which we experience these urges, you are saying that there should be a restraint.
And there can be. You see, it goes back to your thinking. It's all in the cognitive. You can direct your thoughts, and that will influence your behavior. So stop thinking about it, and that will have impact on those urges.
If I may jump in.
Yes,
here.
please
Then
jump in.
I'd like to jump in, because one of the questions I'd like to ask Sandra is, so how do you stop thinking about it? But
Right.
that's for later. What I'd like to say, though, is that as you brought up the point of our young people having these sexual urges and some of them wanting to act on it, it's important for us, from a child is very young, to help them to understand who they are.
Right.
Because at that formative stage, the tween years, the teenage years, those young people are still discovering who they are.
Yes.
And it isn't easy to be discovering who you are and then discovering what sex is and sexual intercourse,
Right.
to contextualize it. And so it's important for us, as we teach a message of abstinence to our young people, to help them to understand that if you take it away, you replace it with something.
Right.
Replace it with self-evaluation. Replace it with understanding who you are. And the only way for you to do that is to figure out simple things about yourself. What are your hobbies? What do you like to do? What do you want to become? And those are the things that we help them to focus on, that will then detract from the physical. What's happening so physically with me? And as Sandra said, get yourself involved in things. And for our church, our Seventh-day Adventist church, it's one of the things that I really love. You have the Pathfinder Club, the Master Guide Club, you have the AY societies, you have all these things. There are sporting activities. Get involved. Do group activities. Go to church and get involved in church. Because as you do these things, it will take your mind off the physical urges that you're having. And sometimes if you get so busy, you don't have time
to think about
or energy.
But Denisha, as you're speaking, I like the point you made about the importance of training, and, especially the home plays a critical role in helping the child to understand who he or she is, right? But we know that in our very society, there is a breakdown, even in the familial structure. Given that many children are coming across things via the different
media,
different
social
forms of
media.
media, how do we then deal with that? Because the training that should have taken place is not taking place sometimes. They're discovering this thing called sex. It's creeping into our churches. We see it. It's already in, right? 9-year-olds, 8-year-olds, 7-year-olds are exposed to this thing called sex. Some are carnally molested.
Yes.
How then do we deal with this?
I think, from my perspective, it's information.
Okay.
And I'm going to just say a little thing here. You know,
Yes.
when you go to sea to fish, you don't catch all the fish. that's in the sea. But the ones that you catch, you make use of them.
Right.
We can't impact every single solitary child, but we have a circle of influence. The circle of influence that we have, whether it's at home, at church, at school, in your community, make a deliberate impact on those lives. And information is the key. Information, inform them in terms of who they are, their purpose in life. And as we look at sexuality, and we look at where sexuality comes from, it comes from God. Our center is God. And everything that we do as human beings must center around that. So if it's in our sexual relationships, God has to be the epitome of that. If it's our work relationships, God has to be the epitome. So give them that information, that self-discovery that they need to have. Discover themselves in Christ, just those. And it is true that it is creeping in. And we have to be careful about the schools that we send our children to. We have to be careful about the information that we allow them to view on the television. The material. I was in a discussion at church where we were talking about Facebook. And the influence is on Facebook. And someone got up and said, Facebook is a community and our children are there living by themselves.
Yes.
Wow.
Yes.
There's no supervision. Your child is on Facebook, be your child's friend on Facebook. So you can see the, no, it's serious.
They have to accept you.
They have to accept you, yes, that's true. But you see,
if you're friends,
Yeah,
if you are friends, and then if that doesn't work, you're the parent, you have a veto vote.
Yeah,
You
yeah,
add
yes,
me.
yes.
Right, but it's important for us to recognize that the way forward really is information. It's informing them, keeping them abreast of what's happening, and helping them to understand consequences.
Yes.
Yeah.
So you see, even as we talk about sex, I mean, in times gone by, call it 20, 30, 40 years ago, sex was a taboo issue. It's not something the parent talks to, with their child. And to some extent, it's gotten better, but we still see instances where it's difficult for a parent to sit down with the child and say, hey, listen, we're going to talk about the birds and the bees.
Adis, I'm a young mother, and I have a 7-year-old. And my 7-year-old said to me, Mommy, what is sex? And I was blown away.
Yeah.
I said, male or female. That's what it is. It really is difficult.
Appropriate information. So it should be age appropriate. You're going to give them the information, but make sure it's age appropriate. So you move from step to step. When they get a little older.
And I find too that things that we try to not explain, that we try to steer away from, becomes intriguing and exciting.
They
And
want
this
to
is
know
why,
more and discover more.
if you're talking about passing on information, parents need to be upfront. And sometimes we can't even blame some of the parents because they are not equipped or they don't feel equipped to deal with the whole issue of telling their children about sex. And with the influences around competing, and sometimes those influences have the children's attention as against, the parents having influence, the challenges become even greater. We're going to take a break. And when we come back, Adis will start off with the next set of questions. Join us soon.